In the first place, we should insist that if the immigrant who comes here in good faith becomes an American and assimilates himself to us, he shall be treated on an exact equality with everyone else. For it is an outrage to discriminate against any such man because of creed or birthplace or origin. But this is predicated upon the person's becoming in every facet an American, and nothing but an American.
In 1907, Yoshisuke Hatanaka left his home country at age 19 for a new life in the United States. 34 years later, he would be arrested by the FBI and classified as an alien enemy.
If you are categorized as a minority group, and you always have that sense of identity a little bit, which country or which group of people do I belong to?
A date which will live in infamy. The United States of America was suddenly and deliberately attacked by naval and air forces of the Empire of Japan.
120,000 persons of Japanese ancestry were transported to an assembly center where they lived for months, eventually being transferred to one of 10 relocation centers.
I was raised in Japan for 22 years. The reason why I came to pilgrimage is because basically my mom.
I wanted to see where I was born, so that's why I came to Post. My father was very Christian and he loved America, USA. He really wanted to live in the United States. He was brought up in Japan till maybe about 16 or 17 and wanted to study. And he was the oldest son, brought up very proud.
As a young man, he immigrated from Japan and he went to Hawaii and he wanted to learn English. So he enrolled in what we call a boarding school, operated by American missionaries. And that's how he learned English. And the next thing, then he got a job working for a plantation, okay? And then eventually he married our mother and then came to the United States.
Yoshisuke would continue his journey across the Pacific with his new wife Hanako in tow. By late 1941, the couple had 3 children and one on the way. He began building a life in the U.S., establishing friendships and even leadership roles within the community in Brawley, California.
He was the head of a Japanese association by the farmer. And also the church leader, he was Methodist, and he was a very faithful, strong Christian. And I think he was very active in church, so whoever had some influence within the community, he was a suspect of being a spy. Yeah.
See, that was the thing. You have to remember wartime, okay? And anybody who looked like a Japanese, he was considered the enemy, you know?
Yoshisuke's position in the community attracted FBI attention long before December 7, 1941, and within 14 hours of the Pearl Harbor attack, he was arrested without explanation. Meanwhile, Hanako was forced to pack up their family, leaving behind their home and most of their belongings. Uncertain of her husband's whereabouts or the future that awaited them, Hanako gave birth to their daughter June in 1942, alone and behind barbed wire while incarcerated in Poston, Arizona.
So my father's interned by the FBI, okay? And we were in Poston. Father being a prisoner of war, they had a rule, the government, okay? They can't keep prisoners more than certain lengths of time because after a while they might escape and so on. So he was interned in maybe about 3 or 4 different camps.
Just because of his ancestry, he was picked up, and then after 2 years, he was so disappointed by the treatment. He never would have expected in a democratic, most, advanced country in the world.
The U.S. government had separated the Hatanaka family, wrongly imprisoned them, and even forced Yoshisuke to miss the birth of his daughter. Hanako and their 4 children were born in the United States, and despite this, they were held in concentration camps by their own government. Because of this mistreatment, Yoshisuke made a difficult decision. Following the war, the entire family would move to Japan.
We were sent to another camp called Crystal City. The sole purpose of the Crystal City was the people in Crystal City were eventually going to be repatriated back to Japan. He didn't want to believe that Japan was defeated. Japan is still, he was thinking about 1941 and 1942, 1943. Japan was the almighty.
I kind of sense my grandfather's sense of pride when he perceived that Japan is actually winning and recognized by the world. The fact that Japanese was finally kind of accepted by the world leaders to be the country of power.
That's why he said, hell with the United States, I'm going back, to the country that, won the war. It's hard to believe now, Although he was exposed, we had what we call American publications, He didn't want to believe that. He thought that was all propaganda.
He had a choice, and they had a family discussion to stay or to go back. Whatever he decides, didn't matter what the children said. So
yeah, they
he
struggle
chose.
because of that choice.
Yeah.
By the end of World War II, about 20,000 Japanese Americans applied for repatriation to Japan. The Hatanaka family became 6 of 4,724 individuals to move to Japan from a concentration camp following the war.
We traveled from Crystal City, Texas, to Tacoma, Washington. And then we boarded Matsonia, approximately 2 weeks on the ocean. And you got to remember, my father, even at that time, was very pro-Japan. He didn't want to believe that Japan lost the war.
The Hatanaka family arrived in Tokyo Bay on Christmas Day, 1945. Yoshisuke had finally returned, eager to introduce his family to his homeland. Their hopeful dreams for the future were shattered by the utter devastation that greeted them. The wounds of war were still fresh. People were starving and unwelcoming to new faces arriving from America.
To this day, I remember when we entered Tokyo Bay, these sunken ships, the harbor was no more. That's when I felt personally he was very despondent. Japan lost the war.
He was safe. He thought he was safe to choose to go back, and the house is there, property is there.
Adjusting to life in Japan was especially difficult for the 3 eldest sons. They were Japanese, but they were also American, and they didn't quite fit into Japanese culture.
To elder uncle couldn't really assimilate it into Japanese culture or people or environment.
But when my father and I talked in Yokohama when I was, I think, in last year of elementary school, he said, "You are Japanese American. You are Japanese American. You're going to study English and graduate from U.S. college."
Due to the Expatriation Act, Hanako had lost her citizenship when she married Yoshisuke, who as a Japanese immigrant was ineligible for citizenship at the time. She reapplied, and the Hatanakas returned to the U.S. in 1957.
Because he said that, okay, I identify myself as Japanese American. I graduated from UCLA, and he was so happy.
Yoshisuke's grandson Jesse was born in Los Angeles but raised in Japan until age 22. He now lives in the United States with his wife and children. Although Jesse spent the majority of his life in the United States, he says people still perceive him as a foreigner. He sees the parallels of his grandfather's experiences and the prejudice he faces in his own life today.
I was raised in Japan, and I was very proud of being American too. But at the same time, when I came back here, and then I'm still now with an American, I still speak funny. Even without an accent, a lot of people ask me, where are you from? And if I say like from Los Angeles, it's like, no, where are you really from, right? We are not really raised up to be a Japanese or to be a Japanese American. It's like American first. We are around for like hundreds of years, but people not fully accepted us as the American, regular mainstream American or whatnot.